you know that the more you think and the more you ponder possibilities and the more you know you don't know, you feel like you're on this sea. I mean, it can really be overwhelming, okay? There's got to be a prior assumption that makes wonder worthwhile, that allows you to feel that you're going to remain afloat on the sea.
That's Job's conclusion, I think. Because Job ends up adrift and barren in the most dismal way possible.
Yes.
And he proclaims two axioms that he won't abandon. One is that despite the evidence, he's fundamentally valuable. Despite the evidence. Okay, so he's not going to lose faith in the essential goodness of being a man. Especially if you're one that's trying to aim up. So he's not going to abandon that. And he's going to make the presumption that the spirit that gave rise to all things is good, even if he can't see how.
So those are the two. You've anticipated me exactly. Let's go with that good thing, especially that the world is good. That reality is good. And now we can even say, well, what do we mean by good? Well, there is some kind of sustaining structure, let's say. And the reason I put it that way, like in other words,
intelligibility? But more than that.
Yeah, probably more than that. But let's take intelligibility just for a second here. One of my favorite books, which I'm now listening to, I read it 30 years ago, is The Making of the Atomic Bomb by Richard Rhodes. And what's so great about this book is, I mean, it has many wonderful features. It's a great work of history. It's a great work of sort of explaining physics to educated amateurs. But what it focuses on is theoretical physics in the first half of the 20th century, which was almost an academic paradise. You had all these great physicists, and they're working together, and they're discovering things like, so they have the atomic theory. At the beginning of the 20th century, an atom, it's this uncuttable thing from the Greek, it can't be cut. And they don't know anything about it, right? And so now they're discovering the nucleus and electrons and protons and neutrons and all this kind of thing. And they're just going around, I mean, the reason I say it's an academic paradise is you go to Cambridge and they say, oh, go to see Rutherford at, this other place. And you go there. Niels Bohr has and so they're all collaborating. But they're convinced that there's a there, right? And they're convinced that.
And that their quest is worthwhile.
And then, of course, all of a sudden it's driven into overdrive because now we're in the war and now there's possible application. But, there's this kind of faith. There's a faith.
I talked to Richard Dawkins about that. I said, because he's an Enlightenment mind, let's say. I said, well, you bring to the scientific endeavor a set of axiomatic presumptions. One is the world could be understood. The second is that trying to understand it is good and will bring good. Those aren't scientific theories. Those are starting points for being a scientist. And so then the question is, well, what's the validity? How do you ground that metaphysics that gets science itself off to a start? Well,
well, I mean, look, in the case of the harnessing of nuclear energy, you have, let us say, a proof of concept, right? That is to say, this is to me probably the most dramatic and persuasive indication that science has the capacity to know something fundamental about reality. Okay, so yeah, I mean, their faith paid off in this instance, but I think this is really, really important because if you don't start with the notion that there is a reality and the reality is good, that it has some kind of intelligibility, etc. But actually, now I'm interrupting myself. Let me just say this. Niels Bohr, here's the humility. Niels Bohr was like the man, incredible physicist. He never spoke of the laws of nature, never spoke of them because he was humble. And people use the word laws of nature, but the fact is, there's no proof that these are laws. I mean, first of all, our horizon is tiny. Are the same laws 10 billion light years away? Whatever. Okay. But second, he spoke about regularities of phenomena, right? So here we have someone who's genuinely understanding, nuclear physics, which, I mean, we're talking about, 10 to the minus 23rd or something, just like stuff that you can't see these things. You can see the effects of them and so forth. And so he's making advances. but he has this humility. So, but anyway.
And that also, that humility, you know, because there's another metaphysical aspect to this too, which is extraordinarily, I learned this from Carl Jung mostly, I think, at least initially, which was, well, what spirit seizes the scientist's curiosity? It's like, so let's say the world's intelligible, the pursuit of that intelligibility is possible and good and could bring benefit. But then that begs a question. The question is, well, does that depend on the orientation of the scientist? So like I read a book at one point that was written by an ex-KGB officer, and he made the claim that there were labs in the Soviet Union in the 80s, I think, in the 80s, where they were trying to hybridize Ebola and smallpox and aerosolize it.
Oh, how lovely.
So, well, that's a perfectly reasonable scientific question. Right? Can that be done? If you live in a world of valueless objects, that's just as good a question as any other. And you can even imagine spin-off benefits from it. But you might say, well, isn't there a better question you could ask? So then you might say that this is a weird thing too, that the goodness of the world is predicated on the aim of the investigator. The alchemists kind of knew that. I got very interested in Jung's analysis of alchemy because the alchemists, the pre-chemists, insisted that the aim of the investigator had to be pure. Right. And so they were beginning to understand that the secrets that matter revealed were dependent on the investigative tools that were put to play in the investigation. And that was actually a moral endeavor. You know, so are you actually trying to aim up?
Yes.
Right.